Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Radio Theater. I'm your host, and I'm here with you tonight. There's something about airports that brings out the truth in people. Maybe it's the stress, the time pressure, the feeling of being suspended between one place and another. But airports have a way of showing us who we really are when things go wrong, and who the people we're traveling with really are too. Tonight we have two stories about moments when travel plans fell apart. One about a lost passport that revealed the fault lines in a relationship, and one about a missed flight that became a night of reckoning. So settle in and let's listen together. Our first story tonight is called The Lost Passport. Dear Radio Theater, I'm writing this from a hotel room in Paris, alone. My boyfriend is somewhere in this city, I assume, though I'm not entirely sure because we haven't spoken in 2 days. We were supposed to be here together, celebrating our 3-year anniversary with a week-long romantic trip. Instead, I'm here alone, wondering if our relationship just ended in the international terminal of JFK Airport. Let me start from the beginning. My boyfriend's name is Jake. We've been together for 3 years. He's smart, successful, works in tech, makes good money. On paper, he's a great partner. In practice, he's controlling. But I didn't see it that way for a long time. I called it being organized, being responsible, taking charge. It took losing my passport in an airport for me to see what it really was. The trip to Paris was Jake's idea. For our anniversary, he planned everything. Booked the flights, the hotels, made restaurant reservations, created a detailed itinerary in a shared Google Doc with times and locations color-coded by day. I thought it was sweet, thoughtful. He was making sure we had the perfect trip. Looking back, I should have noticed that he never asked what I wanted to do, never asked which restaurants I wanted to try or which museums I wanted to see. He just planned it all and presented it to me as a finished product. But I was grateful. Who wouldn't want someone to take care of all the details? 3 days before the trip, Jake sent me a message. A checklist. Things to do before Paris. Confirm passport is valid and not expiring within 6 months. Print boarding passes 24 hours before departure. Pack according to the packing list I sent you last week. Set 3 alarms for the morning we leave. Meet me at my apartment at 6 a.m. sharp so we can leave for airport together. Do not forget your passport. Check for it the night before. I read through the list. Some of it was reasonable. Passport validity, sure. But 3 alarms? Meeting at his apartment even though mine was closer to the airport. A packing list he'd sent me. I texted back, "Got it," though I was thinking I could just meet you at the airport since my place is closer. His response was immediate. "No, we're leaving together. I want to make sure we're both on time and nothing gets forgotten. Plus, we can share an Uber. More efficient." That was Jake's favorite word. The morning of our flight, I set 3 alarms like he asked. Woke up at 5 a.m. Showered, got dressed, double-checked my bag. Passport, wallet, phone, charger, everything on the list. I walked to Jake's apartment. He was waiting outside with his suitcase, checking his watch. "You're 4 minutes late," he said instead of "good morning." "Sorry, the elevator in my building was slow. We need to account for things like that. That's why I said 6 a.m. sharp, not 6:04. I apologized again. We got in the Uber. Jake immediately pulled out his phone and started going through his checklist out loud. Passports. "Do you have your passport?" "Yes." "Can you show me?" I pulled it out of my bag. Held it up. "Good." "Boarding passes?" "On my phone." "You printed them too, right?" "I told you to print them." "Jake, they're on my phone." "That's fine." "What if your phone dies?" "Then I'll show them the PDF on your phone or we can print them at the airport." "It's not a big deal." He looked annoyed but moved on. Checked bag tags. "We're not checking bags. We're doing carry-on only. You said it was more efficient." "Right." "Good." "Okay." The drive to JFK took an hour. Jake spent most of it going over the itinerary again, reminding me of dinner reservation times, telling me which metro lines we'd take to each location, explaining the layout of our hotel. I looked out the window and wondered when planning had become so exhausting. We got to the airport at 8 a.m. for our 11:30 a.m. flight. Jake insisted on getting there 3 hours early for an international flight, even though I'd tried to tell him 2 hours was standard. "Better safe than sorry," he'd said. We went through security. I put my bag on the belt, walked through the metal detector. On the other side, I grabbed my bag and my shoes and started walking toward our gate. "Wait," Jake said. "Where's your passport?" "In my bag." "Can you check?" I sighed and opened my bag, reached into the pocket where I always keep my passport when traveling. It wasn't there. I checked the main compartment. Not there. Checked the other pockets. Not there. A cold panic started rising in my chest. I can't find it, I said. What do you mean you can't find it? You just showed it to me in the Uber. I know. I had it. I put it in my bag. It should be here. Well, clearly it's not here. Where is it? His tone wasn't concerned. It was accusatory, like I'd lost it on purpose. I dumped my entire bag out on a bench near security. Clothes, toiletries, chargers, everything. No passport. Did you leave it in the security bin? Jake asked. We went back to security, checked all the bins, asked the TSA agents. No one had seen a passport. Maybe it fell out when you were getting your stuff, Jake said. Let's retrace your steps. We walked back through the area after security. Checked the floor, checked trash cans, asked at the information desk. Nothing. 20 minutes of searching. No passport. I was starting to panic for real now. Without my passport, I couldn't fly. Our anniversary trip ruined. I don't understand, I said. I had it. I showed it to you. Where could it have gone? Jake was standing with his arms crossed, jaw clenched. This is exactly why I told you to be careful. This is exactly why I made you show me your passport multiple times. And you still managed to lose it. I didn't lose it. It was in my bag. Clearly it wasn't, or you'd have it right now. I wanted to cry. From frustration, from stress, from the way he was looking at me like I was an incompetent child. What do I do? I asked. What do you mean, what do you do? There's nothing you can do. You lost your passport. You can't fly internationally without it. The trip is ruined. Maybe I can get an emergency passport. There's a passport office in the city, right? You think you can get a passport in 3 hours? On a Saturday morning? You're not going to make this flight. You ruined the trip. You ruined the trip. Not the trip is ruined. Not this is bad luck. You ruined it. Jake, I feel terrible. I don't know what happened. But can you please not talk to me like I did this on purpose? I'm not saying you did it on purpose. I'm saying you were careless. I told you to be careful. I told you to check for your passport. I specifically said do not forget your passport. And what did you do? I didn't forget it. I had it. Something happened between the Uber and here, but I had it. Well, it doesn't matter what you think happened. What matters is that you don't have it now and we can't go on the trip I spent weeks planning. A TSA agent approached us. Everything okay here? Jake turned on the charm instantly, smiled at her. Hi, yes. My girlfriend lost her passport somewhere between security and here. Is there a lost and found we can check? She directed us to the airport lost and found office. We went there, filled out a form. They'd call if anyone turned it in. By now it was 9 a.m. Our flight was in 2.5 hours. You should start looking into how to get an emergency passport, Jake said. Though, honestly, by the time you get one, the trip will be half over. I should have just gone alone. Should have just gone alone. What are you saying? I asked quietly. I'm saying this is a disaster and I don't know why I'm surprised. You're always doing stuff like this. Stuff like what? Being careless. Not thinking ahead. Losing things. Do you remember when you lost your keys last month and I had to leave work early to let you into your apartment? I lost my keys once. One time. And your credit card 2 months ago. I didn't lose it. Someone at the restaurant charged it wrong and the bank flagged it for fraud. You're always creating problems that I have to solve. I stared at him. Really looked at him. At his annoyed expression. His crossed arms. The way he was standing away from me like I was contaminating him with my carelessness. I create problems, I said slowly. Yes. And I'm always the one who has to fix them because you can't handle basic adult responsibilities. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was standing in an airport being berated for something I hadn't done intentionally. Maybe it was 3 years of being controlled and organized and managed finally becoming too much. You know what, Jake? I'm standing here stressed out of my mind because I lost my passport somehow, and instead of being supportive or helping me figure out what to do, you're using this as an opportunity to tell me how incompetent I am. Do you hear yourself? I'm being realistic. You lost your passport. That's on you. And you're being cruel. That's on you. He looked taken aback. I never pushed back. Never argued. I always just apologized and tried to do better. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Someone has to be. No, honest would be saying, this is a really stressful situation and we'll figure it out together. Cruel is telling me I've ruined the trip and you should have gone alone. Maybe I should have. There it was. Said plainly. Then go, I said. What? Go. Get on the plane. Go to Paris. Enjoy the trip you planned. Are you serious right now? Completely. You clearly don't want me there anyway. You want someone who follows your itineraries perfectly and never makes mistakes and doesn't create problems for you to solve. That's not me. So go find your gate and have a great time. You're being ridiculous. I'm being clear. Go on the trip. I'll figure out what to do about my passport and we can talk when you get back. If I get on that plane without you, you realize what that means for us, right? Yes, I said. And I did. I realized it completely. If he chose the trip over staying with me during this crisis, it would show me exactly where I ranked in his priorities. And if he chose me, if he stayed, maybe we could work through this. He looked at me for a long moment. I saw him calculating, weighing his options, the non-refundable hotel, the dinner reservations, the perfectly color-coded itinerary. I'll see you when I get back, he said finally, and he walked away. I stood there watching him go, watched him disappear into the crowd of travelers, watched him choose Paris over me. I was still standing there numb when my phone rang. The Lost and Found office. Hi, this is Margaret from JFK Lost and Found. We found a passport that matches your description. Can you come back to the office? I went back. And there it was, my passport. Someone had found it on the floor near security and turned it in. I held it in my hands, this document that had caused so much chaos, and I realized something. I could catch the flight. If I went right now to the gate, I could probably still make it. Security had my boarding pass information. I could find Jake, get on the plane, go to Paris. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to spend a week walking through a foreign city with someone who talked to me like I was incompetent, who blamed me for things beyond my control, who chose an itinerary over his partner. So I didn't go to the gate. Instead, I went to the ticket counter and asked about changing my flight. They had one leaving that evening. I booked it. Solo trip to Paris. I texted Jake from the gate hours later, once I knew he was already in the air on his flight. Found my passport. Taking an evening flight. Won't be staying at the hotel you booked. Need some time to think. We'll talk when we're both back. I turned off my phone and got on my plane. The solo trip to Paris was supposed to be sad. Supposed to be me moping alone in a city made for romance. But it wasn't. It was liberating. I didn't follow anyone's itinerary. I wandered. Got lost in the Marais, sat at cafes for hours with no schedule to keep. Ate dinner at 10 p.m. just because I could. Went to museums Jake hadn't included in his plan because they weren't efficient. And I thought about our relationship. Really thought about it. All the times he'd corrected how I loaded the dishwasher. Reorganized my closet without asking because it was chaotic. Made decisions for both of us and presented them as suggestions. The way he managed me like I was a project that needed optimizing. I'd called it care. Called it him looking out for me. But it was control. And I'd accepted it because it was easier than arguing. Easier than pushing back. Easier than admitting that someone who claimed to love me was treating me like I couldn't be trusted with my own life. The passport wasn't really lost. I mean, it was, but that wasn't the point. The point was how he reacted. The point was that when something went wrong, his first instinct wasn't to comfort me or help me. It was to blame me. To use it as proof of everything he'd already decided about me. That I was careless. Incompetent. A problem to be managed. I spent 5 days in Paris alone. Jake spent 5 days in Paris alone too, I assume, though I don't actually know. We didn't communicate at all. On the 6th day, I flew home. He was on a different flight, also not coordinated. When I got back to New York, there were 12 texts from him waiting. We need to talk. You completely overreacted. I was stressed and said things I didn't mean. But you also can't just disappear for a week. That's not how relationships work. Call me when you land. I didn't call. Instead, I texted, you walked away from me in an airport when I needed you. You chose a vacation over making sure I was okay. That told me everything I needed to know. His response, I was angry. You would have done the same thing. But I wouldn't have. That was the thing. I would never have left him alone in an airport in crisis, no matter how angry I was. We met for coffee 3 days later. Neutral location. Public place. He apologized. Said he'd been stressed about the trip, had overreacted, didn't mean the things he said. He loved me. He wanted to work through this. And part of me wanted to believe him. 3 years. That's a long time. You don't throw that away over one fight in an airport, right? But it wasn't one fight. It was 3 years of small moments I'd ignored. 3 years of being managed and corrected and controlled. The airport was just the moment I finally saw it clearly. I don't think this is working, I said. Because of one fight? Because I got stressed at the airport? Because you don't respect me. You treat me like I'm incompetent. Like I'm a problem you have to solve. And I've been letting you because I thought it meant you cared, but it doesn't. It means you don't trust me. And I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not trusted. That's not true. I trust you. You made me show you my passport 3 times before we left for the airport because you didn't trust that I'd remembered it. You micromanage everything I do. You criticize how I do basic tasks. That's not trust. That's control. I was just trying to help. To make sure everything went smoothly. By treating me like a child who can't handle her own life. He didn't have an answer for that. We broke up that day. In a coffee shop in Brooklyn. 3 years ending not with a dramatic fight, but with a quiet acknowledgement that we weren't right for each other. That we maybe never had been. That was 6 months ago. I still have my passport. It's in my apartment, in a drawer. And sometimes I look at it and think about that morning. About standing in JFK, panicking, watching the person I thought loved me walk away because I'd created an inconvenience. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it. If I should have chased after Jake, gotten on that plane, saved the trip and maybe the relationship. And I tell them no, because that lost passport was a gift. It showed me who he really was when things went wrong. And it showed me who I was too. That I was strong enough to take a solo trip to Paris. That I was capable of making my own decisions and following my own itinerary. That I didn't need someone to organize my life for me. I'm dating someone new now. His name is Alex. He's kind. Last month I locked my keys in my car. I called him, embarrassed, expecting judgment. He just said, "Where are you? I'll come get you and we'll call a locksmith." No lecture. No reminder that he'd told me to be careful with my keys. No exasperation at having to solve my problem. Just support. That's what I was missing with Jake. That basic kindness when things go wrong. So I'm writing this to say pay attention to how people treat you in airports. Pay attention to how they react when you lose something or make a mistake or mess up the plan. Because that's when you see who they really are. And if they walk away, let them. Because you deserve someone who stays. With gratitude for lost passports, someone who found herself in Paris. That was a story from someone who found herself in Paris. Jake didn't walk away from you in that airport because he was stressed. He walked away because when you finally pushed back, when you finally stopped accepting his control, he showed you exactly who he was. Someone who valued his itinerary more than his partner. And here's what I love about your story: you found your passport. You could have chased him. You could have gotten on that plane and spent a week pretending everything was fine. But you didn't. You chose yourself. That solo trip to Paris wasn't plan B. It was the real trip. The one where you gotta be yourself without someone managing every moment. Without someone criticizing every decision. Without someone treating your humanity, your occasional mistakes, as problems to be solved. You asked if people should pay attention to how they're treated in airports. Yes. Pay attention to how people treat you when plans fall apart. When you lose something. When you need help. Because that's when the mask comes off. That's when you see if they're your partner or your manager. And if they walk away, good, let them. Because you deserve someone who stays. Sometimes we lose our passports and find ourselves. Sometimes we miss our flights and find unexpected grace. Sometimes the night we spend stranded in an airport changes everything. Our second story tonight is called The Missed Flight. Dear Radio Theater, I need to tell you about the night I spent sleeping on a bench in O'Hare Airport. Not because I want to, but because that night changed my entire life, and I'm still trying to process what happened. It started as the worst day. It ended as maybe the most important day, and I'm still not sure which it really was. My name is Daniel. I'm 32 years old. Up until 6 months ago, I worked at a consulting firm in New York. 70-hour weeks, constant travel, good money, no life. The kind of job people congratulate you for having while secretly feeling sorry for you. 6 months ago, I missed a flight, and everything changed. It was a Tuesday in March. I'd been in Chicago for 3 days for a client meeting. Exhausting, useless meetings where we talked in circles about things that didn't matter. Tuesday afternoon, meetings finally ended. I had a 7 p.m. flight back to New York. Should have been straightforward. I got to O'Hare at 5:30 p.m. Plenty of time. But there was a massive line at security. Construction had closed 2 checkpoints. I stood in that line for an hour. Didn't move. Just standing, watching the minutes tick by, feeling the stress build. By 6:30 p.m., I was starting to panic. I texted my colleague Sarah, who'd been at the same meetings. "Are you through security yet?" "Yeah, I'm at the gate." "Where are you?" "Still in security line." This is insane. Run when you get through. You might make it. At 6:45 p.m., I finally got through security, grabbed my bag, my shoes, my belt. Didn't even put my shoes back on. Just ran. Sprinted through the terminal in my socks, weaving through crowds, checking the departure boards, seeing my gate number, running faster. I got to the gate at 7:02 p.m. Sweating, out of breath, shoeless. The door was closed. "Please," I said to the gate agent. "Please. I'm here. I'll board right now. Please." She looked at me with that practiced sympathy that airline employees perfect. "I'm sorry, sir." The door closed at 7 p.m. Federal regulations don't allow us to reopen it. It's 7:02 p.m. Please. I've been in that security line for over an hour. I need to get home. I understand. But I can't reopen the door. Policy. I wanted to scream. To argue. To demand to speak to a supervisor. But I could see in her face that it wouldn't matter. The door was closed. I'd missed my flight by 2 minutes. "What are my options?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "There's a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow morning. I can put you on standby for that." "Standby? Not confirmed?" "All confirmed seats are full, but you'll be first on the standby list. And if I don't get on that flight, there's a 9 a.m. with confirmed seats available." 9 a.m. 12 hours from now. I'd have to spend the night in the airport. "Can you put me on the 6 a.m. standby and the 9 a.m. confirmed?" "Yes." She rebooked me, handed me new boarding passes. "Good luck," she said. I walked away from the gate feeling defeated, exhausted, angry at myself for not getting to the airport earlier, angry at O'Hare for the construction, angry at my job for sending me to Chicago for pointless meetings in the first place. I found a quiet corner of the terminal, sat down on the floor against a wall, pulled out my phone, started making calls. First, my girlfriend, Amy. We'd been together for 2 years. Lived together for 6 months. She'd been patient with my travel schedule, but I could tell it was wearing on her. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, you land?" "No." "I missed my flight." "What? How?" Security line was insane. I got to the gate 2 minutes late. They wouldn't let me on. That's awful. "When's the next flight?" "I'm on standby for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Confirmed on 9 a.m. if I don't get on the first one." Silence. Then, "So you're spending the night at the airport?" "Yeah." "Daniel, we have dinner plans tomorrow night." "With my parents." "Remember?" I'd forgotten. Completely forgotten. "I'm sorry. Even if I get on the 6 a.m., I won't land until 9 a.m. New York time. I'll be exhausted. Can we reschedule?" "We've rescheduled twice already. They're starting to think you're avoiding them." "I'm not avoiding them. I just missed my flight." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to not miss flights. I want you to not always be traveling. I want you to be here for things that matter. This matters to me too, but I can't control airline schedules. You could have gotten to the airport earlier." "I got there 2 hours early. There was construction." "Okay, fine. Whatever. Let me know when you land." She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling worse. Next, I called my boss. Left a voicemail saying I'd missed my flight, would be in late tomorrow, sorry for any inconvenience. Then I just sat. It was 7:30 p.m. I had over 10 hours until my standby flight. The terminal was still busy but starting to empty out. Most flights for the evening had departed. The shops were closing. The crowds thinning. I was hungry but didn't want airport food. I was tired but couldn't sleep sitting on the floor. I was stressed but had nothing to do about it except wait. Around 8 p.m. I noticed an older man sitting on a bench across from me. He'd been there when I first sat down, but I hadn't really looked at him. Now I did. He was maybe 70. Gray hair, worn jeans, a backpack next to him. He was reading a paperback book. Looked completely at ease, like sitting in an airport terminal was exactly where he wanted to be. I must have been staring because he looked up and caught my eye. "Missed your flight?" he asked. I nodded. "By 2 minutes. "Ah, that's rough. When's your next one?" 6 a.m. tomorrow. "Maybe. Standby. Long night ahead then." "Yeah." He went back to his book. I pulled out my laptop thinking I'd get some work done. Might as well be productive if I was stuck here. I opened my email. 247 unread messages. I started going through them, responding, organizing, planning for tomorrow's meetings. An hour passed. then another. My eyes started to blur from staring at the screen. My back hurt from sitting on the floor. Around 10 p.m., the older man stood up, stretched, and walked over to me. "Mind if I give you some advice?" he asked. I looked up. "Sure. Put the laptop away. You're not going to get real work done on an airport floor at 10 p.m. And even if you do, it won't matter nearly as much as you think it does." I was taken aback. "I have a lot to catch up on." "I'm sure you do. But you're going to spend the next 8 hours awake in this airport. You can spend it staring at a screen answering emails that will still be there tomorrow. Or you can spend it being present to this very strange, very rare experience of being nowhere, of being between places, being present to sitting in an airport." He smiled. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but think about it. When's the last time you had 8 hours with absolutely nothing you had to do? No meetings, no obligations, no place you need to be, just time. Unscheduled, unplanned time." I thought about it. I couldn't remember. My calendar was packed weeks in advance, every hour accounted for, every minute scheduled. "Exactly," he said, seeing my expression. "So here's what I suggest. Close the laptop. Take a walk. Look around. Talk to people if you want. Or don't. Just be here. It's not often we get forced to stop." "Are you some kind of airport philosopher?" I asked, half joking. "I'm a retired high school English teacher. I've spent the last 5 years traveling, taking my time, spending nights in airports when it makes sense, learning to appreciate the in-between spaces." "You spend nights in airports by choice?" "Sometimes. When flights are expensive and hotels are pricey and I'm not in a hurry to get anywhere, I've spent nights in dozens of airports around the world. O'Hare, Heathrow, Bangkok, Istanbul. They're fascinating places if you pay attention." I must have looked skeptical because he laughed. "You think I'm crazy? That's fine. But I'm going to tell you something. 3 years ago, I was you. Corporate job, constant stress, always rushing. I had a heart attack in an airport. Literally collapsed in a terminal in Denver. Woke up in the hospital and realized I'd been running so fast for so long that I'd forgotten to actually live. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. Forced me to stop, to reevaluate. I retired early, sold most of my stuff, and started traveling. Slowly, deliberately. And I learned that the places between destinations are often more interesting than the destinations themselves." He patted my shoulder. "Think about it. You've got all night." He walked away, back to his bench, back to his book. I sat there with my laptop open, cursor blinking, emails waiting, and I thought about what he'd said. When was the last time I had unscheduled time? When was the last time I wasn't rushing somewhere, working on something, stressing about something? I closed my laptop, stood up, stretched, started walking. The terminal at 10 p.m. was a different place than the terminal at 7 p.m. Quieter, emptier. The shops were all closed, gates dark, only a few people scattered around. Cleaning crews working quietly, the occasional announcement echoing through the space. I walked slowly, not going anywhere specific. Just walking. I passed a woman sitting alone near a gate, talking on the phone. She was crying. "I know, Mom. I know. I'm trying to get home. There's a storm and everything's delayed. I'll be there as soon as I can. Someone else missing something important because of travel." I kept walking. Past a young couple sleeping on a bench, arms around each other, using their jackets as blankets. They looked uncomfortable but peaceful. I passed a man in a suit, slumped in a chair, laptop open, passed out with his head back and mouth open. His screen showed a spreadsheet. He'd probably tried to work and exhaustion had won. That could be me in a few hours. I found myself at an empty gate with a window looking out at the runway, planes taking off and landing, lights blinking. The whole operation of an airport continuing even as most passengers slept. I sat down, just watched. My phone buzzed. Text from Amy. "Are you okay?" I typed back. "Yeah, just walking around. Thinking. About what? About how I'm always somewhere else, even when I'm home." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Yeah, you are. I'm sorry. I know. But I don't know if sorry is enough anymore." I stared at that message, read it 3 times, felt something heavy settle in my chest. "What does that mean?" I typed. "It means I'm tired, Daniel. I'm tired of being alone while you're in Chicago or Boston or wherever. I'm tired of canceled plans and missed dinners and always being the understanding girlfriend. I'm tired of dating someone who's never actually here." I wanted to argue, to say it wasn't that bad. that my job required travel, that I was building a career. But sitting in that empty terminal, looking at her words, I realized she was right. I hadn't been there. Not really. Even when I was physically home, I was mentally somewhere else, checking emails, taking calls, thinking about the next trip. I don't know how to change this, I typed. I don't think you want to. I think you like it this way. I think being busy and important and always traveling makes you feel like you matter, like you're successful. But Daniel, you're not successful if you don't have a life outside of work. You're just busy. I read that message 5 times. You're not successful if you don't have a life outside of work. You're just busy. My phone rang. Amy. Hey, I answered. I don't want to do this over text, she said. Her voice was tired. But I need to say it. I don't think this is working. What isn't working? Us. This. You're married to your job, and I'm not interested in being the mistress. Amy, that's not fair. I'm working hard for our future. What future? We never talk about the future. We barely talk about the present. When's the last time we had a real conversation about anything other than your travel schedule? I couldn't answer. Because I didn't know. I love you, she said. I do. But I don't think you have room in your life for me. And I'm done trying to fit into the margins of your calendar. So what are you saying? I'm saying when you get back tomorrow, we should talk. Really talk. About whether this relationship is something you actually want or just something you're keeping because it's there. Of course I want it. I want you. Then prove it. Not with words, with action. Figure out what you actually want from your life. Because right now, all you want is work. And that's not enough for me anymore. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. My relationship was ending. Maybe. Probably. And I was sitting in an airport at 11 p.m. with nowhere to go and nothing to do except face that fact. I stood up, walked some more, tried to process, tried to think of what to say to Amy when I got back, tried to figure out if she was right. Was I married to my job? Yes. Obviously. But wasn't that what you were supposed to do? Work hard, build a career, make money. Wasn't that success? I found myself back near where the older man was sitting. He was still reading. I sat down on a bench across from him. After a few minutes, he looked up, closed the laptop. That's progress. My girlfriend just broke up with me, I said. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because he was a stranger. Maybe because I needed to say it out loud. Did she? He asked gently. I think so. She said we need to talk when I get back. That I'm married to my job. That I'm not really present. He nodded slowly. Is she right? I don't know. Maybe. I work a lot. But that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's how you succeed. Succeed at what? At life, career, making money? And how's that working out for you? I laughed, but it came out bitter. Well, I'm sitting in an airport at 11 p.m., my girlfriend is leaving me, and I'm exhausted all the time. So great, I guess. He set his book down. Can I tell you what I learned? You don't have to listen, but you seem like you might need to hear it. Go ahead. I spent 30 years teaching. I loved it. But I also worked constantly. Lesson plans, grading, committees, extra help sessions. I'd come home exhausted, barely talk to my wife, eat dinner in front of the TV, go to bed and do it again. For 30 years. He paused, looking at something far away. My wife used to complain about it. Said I was always at school, even when I was home. Said she felt like she was living with a ghost. I'd tell her she was being dramatic, that I was providing, that I was building something important, that she should appreciate how hard I worked. What happened? She died. Suddenly. Aneurysm. She was 53 years old. Perfectly healthy one day, gone the next. I'm so sorry. After she died, I found journals she'd kept. Years of journals. And in them, she wrote about feeling lonely. About wishing I would just sit with her sometimes. Just be present. Not doing anything, not working, just being together. She wrote about all the trips she wanted to take with me, the conversations she wanted to have, the life she wanted to live. And I was too busy to notice. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. That's when I realized. I hadn't been building something important. I'd been hiding, using work as an excuse not to be vulnerable, not to be present. Because being present is hard. It requires you to actually show up, to be seen, to risk being inadequate or boring or just human. I don't think I'm hiding, I said quietly. Maybe not. Maybe you genuinely love your work. But ask yourself honestly, if you could keep your job and your salary but had to work 30 hours a week instead of 70, Would you do it? I thought about it. Really thought. Probably not. I'd feel like I wasn't doing enough. Like I was slacking. Why? Because that's not how you get ahead. That's not how you succeed. There's that word again. Succeed. What does success look like to you? Really look like? I opened my mouth to answer. The standard things. Promotions. Money. Nice apartment. Respect from colleagues. But sitting in that empty terminal, none of that felt right. I don't know, I said finally. Then that's where you start. Figure out what success actually means. Not what you've been told it means. Not what looks impressive on LinkedIn. What makes you feel like your life has meaning? We sat in silence for a while. The airport hummed around us. Quiet but not silent. The sound of a place that never really sleeps. I'm scared, I admitted. If I'm not this person, the busy, successful consultant, I don't know who I am. Then you get to figure that out. That's the exciting part. It doesn't feel exciting. It feels terrifying. Most worthwhile things do. Around midnight, I found a bench and tried to sleep. Couldn't. My mind was too loud, replaying Amy's words, thinking about the last 2 years, realizing how many dinners I'd missed, how many weekends I'd worked, how many times she'd said it's okay when I canceled plans, and I'd believed her instead of hearing what she wasn't saying. At 1 a.m., I got up and walked again, found an all-night food court, bought terrible coffee and a sandwich I didn't want, sat at a table by myself and thought about my life. I thought about college, about how I'd wanted to be a journalist, write stories, tell truths, make people think. And then consulting recruited me, offered me more money than I'd ever seen, told me I could always write later, but I should start my career with something practical. So I did. And somehow 10 years passed, and I'd forgotten about writing, about stories, about the thing I'd actually wanted to do. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, started writing. Not emails, not work documents, just writing. About sitting in an airport, about missing a flight by 2 minutes and realizing your life is off course by years. I wrote for an hour. It felt good. Rusty but good. At 2 a.m., a security guard walked by and told me the food court was closing. I went back to my bench. The older man was still there, still reading. We'd become these two-night creatures, inhabiting the quiet airport together. Can't sleep? He asked. Can't stop thinking. That's good. Thinking is how we change. I'm thinking I might quit my job, I said. Surprised myself by saying it out loud. Yeah? Maybe. I don't know. It sounds crazy. I make good money. It's a good job. People would kill for this job. Let them have it then. I laughed. It's not that simple. Why not? Because student loans. Rent. Life is expensive. Life is expensive when you're trying to impress people who don't actually care about you. Less expensive when you figure out what you actually need. I don't even know what I'd do instead. You don't have to know yet. You just have to know that what you're doing now isn't working. The rest you figure out as you go. At 3 a.m., the terminal was at its quietest. Just a few other stranded travelers scattered around. The cleaning crews had finished. The lights were dimmed. It felt like existing in a bubble outside of time. I thought about Amy, about whether I could fix this, whether I even knew how. I texted her even though I knew she was probably asleep. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. I haven't been there, and I'm sorry. When I get back, I want to talk. Really talk. Not about work or schedules, about us. About what I want my life to actually be. I don't have answers yet. But I'm finally asking the questions. I didn't expect a response. But 3 dots appeared. I'm glad. That's all I've wanted. For you to see what I'm seeing. That this isn't sustainable. That you're burning out and taking our relationship down with you. I know. I see it now. What changed? I missed a flight. And met a stranger who told me about his dead wife. And spent 8 hours in an airport with nothing to do but think. That's very you. Needing to be forced to stop before you'll actually stop. Yeah, we'll talk when you're back. I mean, really talk. Okay? Okay. I love you. I love you too. That's why this is so hard. At 4 a.m., I gave up on sleeping. Just sat. Watched the terminal slowly come back to life as morning approached. More travelers appearing. Gates opening. Shops preparing to open. The airport was transforming from night creature to day creature. And I felt like I was too. At 5 a.m., I went to my gate. The standby list posted. I was number 1. The older man appeared next to me. Your flight? Yeah. Standby. Fingers crossed. You'll make it. The universe owes you at this point. They started boarding, called standby passengers, called my name first. I had a seat. I was going home. I turned to the older man. Thank you. For last night. For talking to me. You did the work. I just asked some questions. What's your name? I realized I never asked. Robert. Yours? Daniel. We shook hands. Safe travels, Daniel. Remember what you learned here. I will. I boarded the plane. Found my seat. Window. Watched the sun rising as we took off. I landed in New York at 9 a.m. Exhausted but strangely clear. I went home. Amy was there making coffee. We sat at the kitchen table and talked. Really talked. For 3 hours. I told her I'd been wrong. That I'd prioritized work over everything else because it was easier than being vulnerable. That I didn't know how to be a person outside of being busy. But that I wanted to learn. She told me she'd been patient for 2 years, waiting for me to wake up. That she loved me but couldn't keep being the person who accommodated my absence. We decided to try, really try. But with conditions. I'd set boundaries at work. I'd be home for dinner 3 nights a week, no exceptions. I'd take real vacations where I didn't check email. I'd go to therapy to figure out why I was so addicted to being busy. And I did all of that. 6 months later, I quit my consulting job. Took a position at a nonprofit with reasonable hours and a 40% pay cut. Started writing again. Freelance articles at first, then a blog, then got an offer to write for a small publication. Amy and I are still together. It's better. Not perfect, but better. Because I'm actually here now. Not just physically present, but mentally present. Engaged. Showing up. People think I'm crazy for leaving consulting, for taking such a big pay cut, for giving up what they see as success. But I think about that night in O'Hare, about Robert and his dead wife's journals, about missing my flight by 2 minutes and gaining 8 hours of forced reflection. And I realized that night saved my life. Not dramatically, but truly. Because I was on a path that was going to leave me burned out, divorced, and wondering where 30 years went. I still think about that airport sometimes, about the strange magic of being stranded, of being nowhere, of being forced to stop. Robert was right. The places between destinations are often more interesting than the destinations themselves. I'm writing this because I want people to know you don't have to wait until you miss a flight. You don't have to wait until your partner gives you an ultimatum. You don't have to wait for a heart attack in an airport. You can stop now. You can ask yourself the hard questions now. You can decide what success actually means to you, not what you've been told it should mean. I spent one night on a bench in O'Hare Airport, and it changed everything. Sometimes the worst days are the best days. Sometimes missing your flight means finding your way. With gratitude for delays, someone who learned to stop. That was a story from someone who learned to stop. Daniel, you didn't miss your flight. You found it. The flight you were actually supposed to be on, not the one to New York. The one toward a life that actually fits you. Robert gave you the greatest gift anyone can give: permission to question everything you thought you knew about success. And you were brave enough to take that gift and use it. Most people spend their whole lives running, working 70-hour weeks, missing dinners, postponing life until retirement, until someday, until later. And then they wake up at 65 and realize later never came. They were too busy being busy to actually live. You got your wake-up call at 32, in an airport, on a bench. That's grace. That's luck. And Amy, she loved you enough to tell you the truth even when it risked losing you. That's the kind of love worth fighting for, worth showing up for, worth being present for. You asked what success looks like. Here's what I think success is: landing in New York exhausted but clear. Success is having a 3-hour conversation. Success is choosing a 40% pay cut for a life that fits. Success is being there, really there. Missing your flight was the best thing that ever happened to you. Remember that when it gets hard. And that's our show for tonight. 2 stories about airports, about passports and flights, but really about the moments when our carefully constructed lives fall apart and we get to see what's actually underneath. To the person who found herself in Paris, keep making your own itineraries. To the person who learned to stop, keep asking the hard questions. And to everyone listening, pay attention to the moments when plans fall apart. Those are often the moments when life is trying to tell you something important. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who's running too fast to see where they're going. Subscribe to Radio Theater. Send us your stories about the times everything went wrong and turned out right. Until next time, remember, Sometimes you have to miss your flight to find your way. Sometimes you have to get lost to get found. Sometimes the worst day is the beginning of your best life. Take care of yourselves. Be present, show up, and don't wait for an airport to force you to stop. This is Radio Theater. Safe travels, everyone.